and welcome to Inside Indy. I'm Kelly Vaughn. If you've driven past, I believe it's 30th and Dr. King Street the last month or so, you probably noticed, if you were going south on Dr. King Street, a tent on the parking lot there for a number of days. And inside that tent is our guest today. He is John Gerton Jr., who is the founder of Unite for Change. He is also the pastor of Christ Missionary Baptist Church here in Indianapolis. Welcome, Pastor G, to Inside Indy.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
You were here actually about 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks ago, and you were on your way into the tent.
Yes.
And tell everybody, just in case they missed the prior interview, what the tent is.
Well, the tent is an initiative that we launched in 2015, then to really raise not only the awareness of sort of the difficulties our community was facing with regard to violent homicide, particularly with our young people in the community, but also it was designed to really focus some attention on the families and the communities that were left behind to really bear the brunt of many of these tragedies. And so we felt that God's call to us was to respond in some way, but not necessarily by asking anyone else to sacrifice their time, energy, effort. But God spoke to me and said, hey, you be the sacrifice. And so the tent was born out of that of finding one of the more violent areas of the city and letting the community know that we were there for them, that we were there to listen to them, to hear their cries, but also to seek solutions to many of the challenges in these under-resourced, underserved communities. That was 2015. 2017, God kind of spoke again and said, hey, it's time to do it again. And this time, what we endeavored to do was to bring the solutions that many people had mentioned in 2015 to meet the needs right there on the corner within that community. And that's what we were able to at least begin the ball rolling with this tent campaign.
Okay, so I do want to talk about the solutions, but you mentioned that he asked you to be the sacrifice. So, and that is a tremendous sacrifice to be out there for 30 days in a tent, and especially in July and late June and July. So can you take us there? What is that like, and what is it like at night, and what are you doing? I mean, we know you're busy because I've seen you on Facebook constantly with the Unite for Change cause, but what is that like, and were you afraid?
First of all, we're not there in the tent every night.
Okay.
I think that's what people mostly think, but when
initially you were there some nights. Okay, the first
round.
round.
Don't get me wrong, I'm in there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely in there, but not every night, depending on what's going on and how things are playing out. For instance, in 2015, we had a lot of rain and cold nights and whatnot, but it happened towards the end of the tent campaign. So, but this time it was unique. I mean, we had really strange weather. It rained a lot, and I mean it rained a lot. So the tent became waterlogged like constantly. So we would open it up, try to air it out, try to dry it out, and then at another point, I actually moved out of the tent and I let a homeless person move into the tent. So that was at another point. And then we had this surge of more rain towards the end of the campaign, which forced me into a car. So I slept in a car. What is it like out there? It's there were some nights where I was up till 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning trying to keep the peace. There are nights where one night I did hear gunshots. One night we had to deal with the holiday, so that kind of had its uniqueness, the 4th of July. But for the most part, you're just up and people are banging on the door at any given moment, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm hungry. One guy, I'm convinced that if we had not pulled him into the tent, he probably would have gotten killed that night because he was getting into some arguments with some other young people that weren't from that community. And so myself and 2 other adults sort of intervened, got the others to sort of leave the scene, and then I pulled him into the tent, gave him something to eat, and he fell asleep right there on the table inside the epicenter. So it's, every night was different. Every situation was different. We had a fire while we were out there, about 3 o'clock in the morning. Fire trucks came. to a house that was right behind the epicenter where we were.
I think I saw you talking about that.
Yeah. So, like I said, you just never knew. We had a car we would suspect it was stolen in the parking lot. We were trying to make sure that there weren't anything weird going on with that car. Just scared? No. Let me be clear. when you go in your own power, fear goes with you. But when you go in the power of the Holy Spirit, the fear is not a part of it. There were times where I was uncomfortable, but never afraid.
Uncomfortable how?
Oh, it's cold, or it's hot, or I'm tired, I'm sleepy, people keep coming in and they want to talk to me. My voice never really came back for 30 days.
Sounds a lot like Jesus, huh? I'm tired, leave me alone. Well, feed me, heal me.
I mean, I do have a newfound respect for breaking away and going off somewhere, and knowing that when I go, that I can go and be alone and quiet. I have a newfound respect for that, because I didn't get a lot of that. There were times where they would tell me, Pastor G, go to sleep. We're going to shut the door. And I would think I wasn't sleepy until I fell asleep and didn't wake up till like 4 hours later.
Right.
And they say, you needed that, didn't you? I was like, oh, I guess I did. So, but not to, and I'm being jovial about it now, but in all seriousness, there's nothing like being available to people who need something that much, being that available. It takes a lot out of you, and it doesn't always.
It's like pastoring on a whole nother level, on steroids, huh?
Yeah.
Because that's Yeah,
I guess so.
So what did you learn this time around that? Because I know there were a lot of things that you learned from the first experience. But what surprised you this time? Anything that stuck out that, like, wow, I didn't see that coming?
Well, I believe that every time we do something like this, God is stretching us. And I think the first time he stretched us with regard to the degree of hate that came. At one point I had to just ignore Twitter and some of the emails that were coming in. And you kind of knew where they were coming from. I wanted to keep my family away from it, my children away from it. I wanted to keep my wife away from it. I didn't want them to experience sort of the voices of people who really felt like the community that we were called to serve didn't deserve to be served, or they felt like they had answers that were beyond what God had called us, how God called us to meet the need. They felt like...
I'm confused. Hate, what is there to hate? I don't get it. What were they? I mean, I think just to be more specific.
Just a lot of ignorance to the individuals that we were called to serve, ignorance to their plight, ignorance to what they have to deal with, what they go through on a daily basis. It's just a lot. Well, let me fast forward, because that's what I learned in 2015, that there's a lot of people that no matter how hard you try to help others, somebody's not going to like it. I get that. So in going into 2017, it was like, okay, well, I expect that, because I'm used to that. I've seen that. Anytime you step up into a position of leadership, expect daggers to come. Somebody's going to have a problem with it. And so in 2017, it was no different. I have about 22 pages from white supremacists, had death threats, you name it, from people that just, called me everything. Everything. And they were, when you read through them, you realize it was just, again, a lot of ignorance to what we did.
But you really got to help me understand, because I don't. Why would a white supremacist? What are they saying? I mean, what is there to say?
Well, I can't repeat some of the things that were said, but much of it had to do with the assumption that my purpose was to raise money to go buy cars and go buy houses and lavish myself. Others of it was our goal was to get government funding and use our tax breaks as a church to rape the community. I was called a pimp. I was called just all kinds of, and other things that I can't say on the air. They were suggesting that the people in the community were going to shoot me and kill me. They were just like, let's just wait and see how long he lasts before they do a drive-by on me. So things like that. But that wasn't what was surprising this time. What was surprising this time was the venom from the African-American community. That's what surprised me the most this time, that I was attacked by people from my own community. And that was really surprising this time. But, you know, it is part of it. So you take it and you use it as fuel, and I use it as something to motivate me, to empower me to get ready for whatever the next thing is.
Wow, the devil is busy, isn't he? Man, because that wouldn't even cross my mind. I mean, would have no idea that you were going through that or receiving those kinds of messages. I mean, just people need to find something better to do.
And that's why we, you know, I wanted initially to just delete some of the messages that were coming on Facebook, but what I decided to do was to leave them there so that people could kind of understand and see firsthand why we don't get a chance
some of those on the show.
Yeah, why we don't get a chance to move forward as a community. When, and I've always said that one of the keys to what we're doing is that I'm doing me. I'm doing what God has called me to do. I'm in the lane that God has placed me in. And that means that what I do, I use the gifts, talents, and abilities that God has given me to do it. So if I pull out a camera, that's probably because I'm a former broadcast journalism professor. And I've been doing this for 30 years. That's just what I do. So somebody called it camera tricks, and it was kind of like, okay, well.
Like, no, I know what I'm doing.
This is kind of what I do. So telling our narrative was very, very, very important, as you could see, so that I would not have to wait on mainstream media to tell a story for us. I wanted to tell a story for ourselves, and that's what you saw. So those are the things that surprised me the most this time. The need, the statistics that we receive helped inform us as to what we need to do next, but for the most part, the things that surprised me were really the venom from within our community.
All right. Now, we're going to be taking a break here in just a second, but if I were to pick 4 topics, what are the main issues of concern, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the solutions, that the way you solved and addressed those problems, because there was action going on in that tent and things were happening. So what would you say the 4 key things at the top of your mind in terms of the struggles in the community? Because that's just part of what's going on in the whole city.
Number 1, food insecurity. That was the top need. All right, upwards to 85+% of those who came and did intake needed food. Employment. 48% of those who came to do intake were unemployed. We also had transportation. We never solved the transportation issue. That was a huge concern. One of the things that did not get mentioned that I'm going to put out there is youth engagement. We never solved that issue either of youth engagement.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the ways that you all help to address some of these issues that you just listed in the community when we come back.
What you're facing right now is in trouble. Divorce, disease, loss, financial issues, job loss. But if you're a believer, you're not facing trouble. You're facing travail. A woman in childbirth, she's going through travail. It's pain with a purpose. See, facing the difficulties in life doesn't mean that you're facing trouble. What it means is that your trouble comes with benefits. Read Romans 8.
Back here on Inside Indy with Pastor G, who is the pastor of Christ Missionary Baptist Church, and he is the founder of Unite for Change, which is a movement that started with a tent near 30th and Dr. King Street, but has become so much more than that now. And we were talking about solutions that you offer to the community. You had a lot of action, much more action even than the first time.
Most definitely.
So tell us about the action and how you were solving some of these issues or addressing them.
Well, as you know, some of the things the needs that needed to be met, we didn't know ahead of time. We tried to position ourselves with the understanding that this is organic. It's going to sort of morph into what it needs to be. That's similar to the way we did in 2015. This year, though, what we did was we went into what was sort of kind of a glorified storage unit. We cleaned it out. We had one of the members of our church go in and did some renovations, and we turned it into what we call the epicenter. The epicenter was designed to be the place where we did programming out of to meet needs and to empower and to educate people. But we also did what we call intake. We developed what we call a We Care network of referrals, which were partners that we had communicated with or connected with to help, like I said, meet some of the needs as they came in. And so you can imagine that if we had roughly 15 partner agencies or organizations that we could refer out whenever someone came to the tent and said they had a need, they needed housing, they needed food, they needed a job, they needed training, something like that, then we would go to our 15 resources and make the referral and then follow that person to ensure that that the need was met. Well, over time, of course, that referral list continued to grow. So there were organizations and institutions that came to us and said, hey, we want to be a part of this. We want to be a part of the network. We want to be of assistance and support of what you're doing. And so they did. Some of them to the degree where they were on site. Riley Children's Hospital was there with from the neonatal unit. They came in to talk about infant mortality. Wow. We had Legacy House was there for immediate referrals on a schedule. So if somebody needed someone real quick, that they were right there. We had Outreach Inc., which was on call. We had a psychotherapist, which was on call. So as well as the Marion County Public Health Department, they have some intake specialists that were on call if we needed them to get someone brought into intake and then maybe taken to some type of detox or something like that. So that's what was going on this year, which was like a total flip from last year, from 2 years ago. And so what that meant was 2015, where you may have had 1,500 people come through, there was love, there was prayer, there was listening, there was all of that, and there were over 1,500 people there. Well, this time the numbers were reduced, but also there was a higher level of accountability and responsibility on the person that came through to say, hey, if you have a need and you're really ready to change, you're really ready for a job, you're really ready for some training, you're really ready to update your skills, if you're really ready for that government issued ID, then let's make it happen. And our people would literally sit there, make the phone call to the Excel Center, make the phone call to the trustee's office, make the phone call to a landlord. They were literally there to help make sure that that need was met. And then the follow-up, which starts this coming Monday, they'll start following up with those phone calls to see where people are in that process.
Wow, because this typically doesn't happen, the follow-up part where you help people. Okay.
Not at all.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, will you do it again?
It depends on what the Lord says. I can't tell you.
Okay. Okay, I would think he'd want you to, because I think you're having a major, impact. I saw you on Facebook a lot, and let's talk about that in terms of the immediacy of it, and that that wasn't around, say, I don't know, 10 years ago or so to use that. Well, what kind of response did you get? And oftentimes I'm flipping through my phone and I would see you, and whether you were inviting people to come down to job fair today or whatever. Yeah. So what kind of responses did you get from that, and what impact do you think that approach has on the community?
Well, it depends on what community we're talking about, because different cultures, different communities respond to social media differently. And the community that follows me does not respond to social media like other communities do. For instance, there was a video of a gentleman who picked up somebody who was on their way to work. He picks them up in the car. He finds out this person works, at a fast food restaurant but wants to buy a car. And so he gets on social media, and within a short period of time, he's able to help the guy get a car, right? Raise $10,000 to get the guy a car. He gets a car, they give it to him, and they move on. the people that follow me on social media don't respond like that. They consume social media, but they don't use social media for necessarily the reason why social media is powerful, and that is the share button. So the response that we received from it more so was just people who were able to chronicle what was really going on at the tent. There was some sharing, but not as much as one would think when you consider what social media is really designed for. So I believe that the power of what we were doing will really present itself more so futuristically when we look back on it and say, what did we do? How did things happen? What kind of person came? What kind of programming did we have? That, I think, is going to be important, because as we design a infrastructure that is sustainable, we need to look back and determine what worked, what didn't work, what did we do, what did we not do, what could we have done. And so more than anything, what I was posting helped us to document what we were able to do. Yes, I could have written a report, but basically we have a visual report of the different things that we had. And so I tried my best to put information out there about what we were doing so that there could be no question about the programming that took place during those 30 days.
Okay. Mayor Hogsett on the scene at some
Yes.
point? He stopped by?
Yes.
And so what was that about? Visiting? Helping out? What was his role?
Well, his role was to help close out the 30-day campaign. And, you know, I think his perspective is one that he's been championing since he took office, and that is, this is one city. So what happens on the south side is inextricably connected to what happens on the north side. If we have violence on the east side, then the west side will feel it. And so the efforts that we were putting together in the community that we were in are going to affect communities in other areas of our city. And so if we're going to be one city, as he has adopted, I'm going to say he adopted it because it wasn't his to begin with. But if we're going to be one city, then we have to begin to think about how we work together to help make it one city. And that means that I don't ask somebody to go sleep in a tent on their side of town. What I do is I say, how can I help you, come alongside of you, do what I do, and support you in doing what you do, and together we make the impact necessary to bring this city to the level that it needs to be on.
Okay, one of the things you mentioned, and we've just got about 2 minutes left, you mentioned the food, that people were hungry.
Yeah.
So how do you see solving that? And I know you couldn't solve it in a day or 30 days in a tent, but you saw the people come and they're asking for food and they're hungry. And you might even see a little bit what's around them and why are they hungry and that kind of thing. So how do we fix that?
You know, there were only a few things that we really felt like we didn't do a good job of. Number one was transportation. That was a recurring issue that we just couldn't get our brains wrapped around, because there's always something associated with transportation. The second one was food insecurity, which was the highest need. Now, having said that, what I kind of discerned was that this food insecurity issue is much more complex than build a grocery store. There are some other dynamics going on with regard to how people access food, how they prepare to feed their families, how they think long term, how they work their money or what they have, because it was almost as if people would be hungry, get something, they would eat it all up without thinking about where's the next meal coming from, and what is the next meal going to be, and how is that next meal going to impact me and my family? I don't know how else to put that, but this is deeper than just building a grocery store. It's much deeper than that. And I think that we do ourselves a disjustice to think that if we just build a grocery store, we solve the insecurity issue. That does not solve it. Right. There's another level of education that needs to be put into place when we talk about that.
If you get the store, you still got to pay for it. So will you come back? We'll continue this discussion.
I'll do whatever you ask me to do, Sister Kelly.
Okay. John Girton Jr., Pastor G, founder of Unite for Change and pastor of Christ Missionary Baptist Church. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bless you. Thank you.
On Inside Indy. And thank you for joining us. I'm Kelly Vaughn. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.